As I have discussed before, if we lived on a ball, it's axiomatic that all aircraft must continually dip their noses to account for the curvature of the Earth. If a commercial airline flies at 575 miles per hour, in just 10 minutes of flight, the airplane would have to drop approximately 6,123 feet to maintain level flight. That's a huge adjustment. Over the years, I've heard several explanations from globe proponents as to how aircraft make these necessary adjustments for the curvature of the Earth. Some have claimed that the pilot himself makes the adjustment. But wouldn't pilots sometimes forget over just a few minutes to make an adjustment and endanger their aircraft and passengers? Other globe proponents have said that the alleged force of gravity causes the airplane to automatically adjust for the curvature. But wouldn't the nose of the airplane have to be pulled downward more than the airplane itself? Also, flight is essentially defying so-called gravity. Are these curvature adjustments something different? Most globe proponents seem to now claim that air pressure causes the airplane to adjust automatically for the supposed curvature of the Earth. The problem with that is that air pressure still must inexplicably pull the nose of the airplane downward, and air pressure is far from constant at any elevation, and so level flight would be difficult to maintain. I am not going to argue the merits of these claims further in this video. What I do want to discuss is whether there is any evidence that the airplane does indeed adjust its nose downward to account for the curvature of the Earth, as it must if we lived on a ball. Because if there is no downward curvature adjustment during flight, then there is no globe. It's that simple. And that is probably why so many pilots have figured out the Earth is flat. But there is another way to make this determination: the stars. We are going to analyze an amazing time-lapse filmed by a pilot on a flight from Munich, Germany to Sao Paulo, Brazil. You can find the unedited version on this website. Please note that this Beyond Clouds website has no association with the flat Earth, which means this evidence comes from an unbiased party. The distance for the full flight from Munich to Sao Paulo is over 6,000 miles, but the recording was only for approximately 3,000 miles. That begins before Palma, located on the island of Majorca, Spain, and the video ends before the equator after the plane passes Dakar, Senegal, on the western coast of Africa. Of course, some movement of the stars is expected with any time lapse. Keep in mind that when you're in the north and facing southwest, like in this flight, the stars should rotate in a downward slant to the right and clockwise motion, somewhat like this. For this time lapse, we're going to track these two stars. The one on top seems to have a tail of stars that rise up and to the left. It's easy to spot. For brevity, I'm going to speed up the footage. The plane is going to adjust its heading left and right a few times, but try to keep an eye out for those two stars. There are the two stars again. Here they are over on the right side. They have dropped a little, but here they are again. And that's the end of the time lapse. This is the beginning position of the stars. Approximately 3,000 miles later, here is the ending position. As expected, the star slightly rotated clockwise and dropped slightly. You can even see how the star on top with the tail looks a little bigger and has rotated clockwise. So, what is the problem with this time lapse for the globe? The problem is that the plane has to be dipping its nose to account for the alleged curvature of the Earth. For simple illustration, if I had a stunning view of the stars at the beginning of my flight, as time progresses and the nose of the plane drops to account for the curvature of the Earth, the stars should appear to rise up like this. In fact, the nose of the airplane is allegedly dropping while the stars, which are somewhat fixed and allegedly separate from the Earth, should appear to rise up if we lived on a ball. But you don't need to believe my illustrations. Fortunately, Google Earth allows us to model this same flight with the stars in the background and shows us exactly what would happen if we lived on a globe. For this Google Earth model, I used our distance of roughly 3,000 miles on the exact same flight route that I showed earlier. I set the altitude at 10,000 meters or 32,800 feet. Remember, this is how the globe should work. Now, watch the stars. There's no question about it. As the viewpoint continually dips, the stars rise up, exactly as we would logically expect if we lived on a ball. The stars are not just rising up a little bit, which would be open to debate. The upward movement is huge and unmistakable. But the real-life time-lapse did not show stars rising at all. Instead, the stars only rotated clockwise and moved downwards a little, the wrong direction for an airplane traveling 575 miles per hour and adjusting for the curvature of the Earth. There is no rising movement of the stars exhibiting any sign of the curvature adjustment required by the globe. The commercial jet is flying over a flat Earth. Here's another example that I found, filmed by a passenger from the side of the aircraft. But again, there is no movement of the stars, indicating a jet that is adjusting for the curvature of the Earth. Going back to the first flight, let's say I got the distance of 3,000 miles wrong. And so let's shorten our flight to just 2,500 miles. That starts just before Palma de Mallorca and ends just after Dakar. Both places are specifically identified in the flight as shown here. The globe still fails reality. Even at a shorter distance, under the globe simulation, the stars substantially rise as the viewpoint adjusts for the curvature of the Earth. If the Earth were a globe, then all aircraft maintaining level flight must adjust downward for the curvature of the Earth. The pilot's time-lapse of the stars showed us that this downward curvature adjustment does not happen. Therefore, the Earth is not a globe. In short, if the globe were real, all flights must dip their noses to account for the curvature of the Earth. If a jet did not dip its nose, in just a few minutes, the jet would quickly gain altitude and risk the aircraft and its passengers. Globe proponents have varying explanation as to how an airplane adjusts for the curvature of the Earth, and they are entitled to their beliefs. I really don't care. But globe proponents cannot escape the absolute fact that the downward nose adjustment must occur. But the downward pitch of the nose following the alleged curvature of the Earth must be revealed in the stars, which would rise upward from the perspective of the pilots and passengers as shown here. If the stars do not appear to rise upward, then there is no curvature adjustment, which means there is no globe. In my last video, I shared a time lapse of a part of a flight from Zurich, Switzerland to Sao Paulo, Brazil, for a distance of approximately 3,000 miles. The flight direction was southwest. If you model the same flight on Google Earth, there should be an obvious, apparent upward movement of the stars. But in the time-lapse filmed by the pilot, there was no upward movement of the stars, and therefore no curvature adjustment required by the globe. I also provided a second video from a different flight filmed by a passenger that again showed no upward movement of the stars. The primary counter-argument raised by the globe proponents was that the Earth's alleged rotation canceled out the upward movement of the stars. To help explain their position, if I were in the northern hemisphere standing on a mountain facing west, the stars should appear to drop, as shown here, based on the claim that the Earth is rotating towards the east. So, if I were flying at the equator at 1,000 miles per hour to the west, then theoretically speaking, the globe's rotation to the east at 1,000 miles per hour would cancel the upward motion of the stars. But what would happen if we turned the airplane around and instead flew east at 1,000 miles per hour. According to the globe, the flight and the Earth's rotation would no longer be opposing each other, but would instead be combining to make the movement of the stars twice as visible. With respect to the time lapse, the globe proponent claim was that even though the jet was headed southwest, the upward movement of the stars due to the curvature adjustment of the aircraft and the downward motion of the stars due to the rotation of the Earth canceled each other out equally. Let's call it the canceling out claim. None of that makes any sense because the airplane was headed southwest, not west, and the Earth's rotation at the equator is approximately 1,000 miles per hour. Even assuming the Earth's rotation was real, there still should have been some evidence of upward movement, even at an angle. But I'm not going to argue this further because it misses the bigger point. These globe proponents unfortunately set themselves up for a major problem. If the jet's flight heading southwest was perfectly offset by the globe's alleged rotation, then if the plane turned around and headed the opposite direction to the northeast, then the upward movement of the stars, as modeled by Google Earth, would have to double. It's not like the Earth's rotation can switch directions for different flights. By switching the aircraft's heading to the northeast, the flight and the Earth's rotation would no longer be opposing, but would be combining to double the apparent movement of the stars. Fortunately, in the comment section, Kevin Samuel provided a link to a pilot who filmed a time-lapse flying in the opposite direction, heading northeast. A big thanks to him. The video comes from the channel Best Airplane Seat. Again, this channel has no association with the flat Earth. But before we get to the main video I want to discuss, this pilot also filmed a time-lapse from Lisbon, Portugal to Sao Paulo, Brazil. That's almost the exact same direction as one I shared before from Zurich to Sao Paulo. But this video is almost for the entire flight. It's a time lapse at a distance of roughly 4,900 miles. This is what a star's time lapse at a distance of 4,900 miles should have looked like if we lived on a globe, as the airplane dips its nose downward to adjust for the supposed curvature of the Earth. It's still shocking to me how obvious this is. Now, let's watch the time-lapse filmed by the pilot, which you can find here. For brevity, I don't want to track the stars again like last time, but I can assure you that there is no upward movement of the stars for the entire flight. This confirms it. There is no upward movement of the stars, evincing a commercial jet that is dipping its nose to account for the curvature of the Earth. I'm sure the pilot from Best Airplane Seat did not mean to absolutely debunk the globe here, but he did. That is a fact. But what about the claim that the Earth's alleged rotation canceled it out again? He did fly the exact same direction to the southwest as the last flight we analyzed. Fortunately, this pilot did make a time lapse in the opposite direction from Sao Paulo, Brazil to Lisbon, Portugal. Remember, by switching directions, if the globe canceling out claim was correct, then there should be twice the upward movement of the stars from what we just watched. Sadly, there is a major cut in the video. That's unfortunate, but we can still use it. I don't know why there's a cut in the middle of it. It's possible that the pilot spliced together two different flight videos. Maybe the pilot substantially changed his heading or something else, but it will not affect our analysis. Let's start with the first approximate 1,500 miles from roughly the beginning of the flight from Sao Paulo until after Natal, Brazil. You can watch it yourself, but facing northeast, the stars should rise up and rotate counterclockwise. And that's exactly what the stars do. Of course, some of the stars rise up in the middle, but the ones on the left actually drop. That means they're rotating. Regardless, there is no indication of a curvature adjustment, especially when you consider the fact that we should be doubling the amount of upward star movement if the canceling out claim were true. For the second segment of the video, we're going to see two sets of islands before the plane lands in Lisbon. The Cape Verde Islands, or Cabo Verde, and you can actually see the volcano Pico do Fogo very well and then you see the Canary Islands. That gives us a time lapse of approximately 2,000 miles confirmed by the islands. Even at 2,000 miles, the upward movement of the stars should be very recognizable. Here is what it looks like on Google Earth. But remember, assuming the canceling out claim of our globe proponents was correct, the time-lapse of the stars filmed by the pilot traveling northeast should appear twice the amount shown right here on Google Earth. You can essentially double the amount of movement you're seeing right now, and that is what we should see if we lived on a ball. Now, let's watch the actual 2,000-mile time-lapse, and we're going to concentrate on just one star right here that's visible right from the beginning. Again, the stars are going to rotate counterclockwise. Some stars will rise, but this one will actually drop. Here it is again. And here it is right before landing in Lisbon, Portugal. Here's the beginning position. Here's the ending position. The same star was visible for over 2,000 miles heading northeast. Comparing that to what we should have seen if we lived on a globe, the truth becomes obvious. There is no curvature adjustment by aircraft. This ends the globe. The upward movement of the stars should have occurred, but it did not. As confirmed from several video sources, commercial jets do not drop their noses to account for the curvature of the Earth. Forget my 20-mile laser test proving the Earth is flat. There is no measurable curvature over 4,900 miles. No curvature of the Earth means the Earth is demonstrably flat. Thank you for watching. I first want to thank Flat Earth Dave and the Flat Earth Podcast for providing some of the details for this Flat Earth proof. I also want to thank Pablo's dog for recommending and reminding me of this evidence.